Welcome to my first tutorial on Designaknit 8. This tutorial will be speaking about how we're going to take a standard garment type from the Designaknit software and we're going to import it into original pattern drafting workbench, and what we're going to do is we're going to modify a standard garment, and we're going to do this over several tutorials. The first one will be taking a regular sweater shape, so a regular round neck, straight hem sweater, dull as dishwater, and we're going to make it into something more modern and fancy. So we're going to work with the Cartesian Graph, we're going to work with curves, we're going to work with removing points, we're going to work with measurements, all that sort of stuff. So this is going to teach you how to make an asymmetrical sweater, but the techniques in this can be used for anything. So once you master this, you can use the techniques we use in this to change. This is just going to change the bottom hem really, but you can use this changing method to make different garment shapes. So you can start with the regular sweater and then you can manipulate it to make different garment types. You can start with a sweater block and make a dress. You can start with a sweater block and make all sorts. You can make a crop top if you want to go back to 1990s Britney Spears. But you can just, this is not, how do I explain this? This is not a how to do everything in Designaknit. This is where to start, how to get something accomplished. So in this first tutorial, we're going to work with the original pattern drafting, and we're going to draft the garment. In the second tutorial, we're going to work on adding a stitch pattern to the garment with the stitch designer section. And then in the third tutorial, we're going to take it and we're going to put it into interactive knitting. So once we've done that, we will go back in several tutorials later on, and we're going to edit the garment, and we're going to change parts of the garment, and we're going to do more complex things with this same base garment. So once you learn how to use this same base garment, you can use the same techniques we're using on any garment. You can even draft garments from scratch, but first we're going to work on a standard block. We're going to alter the standard block, and then we're going to knit the standard block. So once we get that down pat, we'll go into different things like making baby garments, making hats, drafting things that are not working on the standard bodice. But we need to learn how to use the software on a standard form first. So what we're going to do with the select garment type window is we're going to select our neck. So I'm going to use a round neck today. I always select the styling over this side first, and then I go back and do this part, but it doesn't really matter. So I want a set-in sleeve because that's a fairly complex sleeve, but by using this we can do more complex things with it later. So we're going to do a straight back neck because that's basic. We're going to do female today for our example, and we're going to do adult. So we're going to click OK, and we're going to bring this up to this window, and then we're going to select machine knitting because this is for machine knitters, and we're going to click OK. So now we've selected our machine. I'm going to use my 965i and click OK. Now this here is the attentions window. This can be changed at any time. So you do not, at the start of creating a garment, you do not need to set the tensions because we're working in centimeters. We don't need to set this right now, but we can. But I'm going to leave it as it is here, and I'm just going to make this the same. Because this tutorial is going to work with a fold over welt, or fold over hem, we're not going to need to change this. We can use the same tension, because if we knit the garment in stockinette, we'll do the hem in stockinette. There's no real need, and we just add the turning row. Okay, so now this is our ease table. So, sorry, I'm going a bit fast. Before I just clicked OK once I selected what I wanted. So now we're going to choose our ease. So casual ease means it fits nicely, it's not tight to the body. Classic is a classic straight down sweater, Oversize will make it bigger than it needs to be, or for the oversized style. And zero means it's exactly base measurements from your client. So we're going to use casual. Now you can use a custom size and put in the person you're drafting for size. But because this is a standard tutorial, I'm just going to use a standard size 14. Because when I draft blocks, I always start with a size 14, because then we can grade up to a size 30 and down to a size 10 or lower if you prefer. So we're going to choose our 14. We'll go OK. So now here's our measurements window. So you need to know how to take measurements, but obviously if you're trying to design with Designaknit, you know how to do that. Your ease is how much is added onto this figure. So ease means room in the garment from the body measurements. If I made the garment 92 centimeters at the chest, it means it would cling to the chest at 92 centimeters. And depending on who you are, especially if you're a female, your bust size will, of course, worry this. You may need more ease. You may need less ease. So remember, this is your tight to body measurements, and this is what's added on top to make you feel more comfortable, or to make the garment in the style you like. So we're going to click OK, and now we've got Designaknit has drafted our sweater to fit those measurements. Okay, so this is the basic sweater block. So here's our sleeve over here, and here's our garment. So that's all well and good. That can be knit from that right now. But a lot of people have trouble working out where to move from here. Sure, Designaknit's great for making these, but it's also good for making other garments. But starting at standard garment styling is really good, because you have your block ready and you can manipulate your block without too much thinking. Because if you were to just draft your block, there's a lot of thinking that goes into it. And a lot of people just want to be able to create. Some people are not in amongst the designing section so much. They don't... That's not the right way to put it, I'm sorry. Some people just want to see their garments, instant gratification, but some people love the design process. So I'm an instant gratification person. But sometimes I'm a bit OCD and like to make it different, but instant gratification is good. So now we've got our draft made by Designaknit. You can see we can click on stylings and all that sort of thing, but we don't need that right now. So we're going to close this, and we're going to click Original Pattern Drafting. So what it's going to do is it's going to ask us, do we want to save? I'm going to say yes, and we're going to name this YouTube. I've already run through this about 10 times, and something always went wrong with the recording system, so hopefully I don't sound a bit bored doing this, but doing it 10 times over and over, you get faster. So we're going to click OK, and we'll say yes, because I've already done it. Okay, now here we are in Original Pattern Drafting. So this is our OPD window here. I will refer it to from now as OPD rather than, So here's your pieces of your garment. You've got sleeve 1, you've got sleeve 2. These two sleeves are identical. And then we've got our front and our back. So what Designaknit does is it works on a Cartesian graph system. So Cartesian graph is an old graphing system. So you've got your x-axis, which is horizontal, which comes across here, and you've got your y-axis, which comes up here. So y is your height and x is your width. So Designaknit plots our garments in that format. So if we click on this, we click on this garment here, this piece, left click on it, and then we click on this little doohickey up here, and it'll remove those pieces. And if we click on this doohickey, they have names, but I call them doohickeys, but your centralized piece button, you click on this and it'll bring it up on the screen where you can look at it. So this is our basic sweater block. Now remember, it hasn't got the welt on here because Original Pattern Drafting takes the welt away because it's not a standard piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this garment with an asymmetrical hem. Now that's all well and good, but see this mirror line here? This blue line means that anything that happens to this side, click properly, move that across. Anything that happens on this side is going to be reflected on that side. And that's a pain, because if we want to do an asymmetrical garment, we can't, because, of course, it moves both sides. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z to remove that back to the standard garment piece. And I'm going to click on this little button here, the vertical mirror. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to remove the blue line. So that means whenever I move something over here, this side here is going to stay in place. So I'm going to go Ctrl Z to undo that. Now, this is the point system. Okay, so these little dots are the point system. Okay, so if we click up here on this number button with the little numbers in it, it'll number our points. So those points are reference marks of where Designaknit plots the points. So the points form your block shape. So to make a block shape, you add and subtract points and you move them to the position they need to be to create the solid shape. Now, I can use my mouse and move these points anywhere I like, okay? We're just going to undo those actions with the Control-Z button. And it's fine, but if I want to make precise movements that are fast, so I can copy, say, a magazine pattern, I'm going to use something called Cartesian coordinates. So to get to the Cartesian path, it's called a table. So Designaknit calls it a table. So we're going to click up here, piece, and table, okay? So this here is using the Cartesian graph, okay? So the X and Y states how far the point is from the origin. So if you look here, we've got a 0 here and a 0 here. Okay. The 0 is the center point. It's where everything is manipulated from. So if I have a look at number 16, we can have a look here and we see to number 10. We want to click on there so we can go down to number 16. We can see that number 16 is 26.5 minus, so you get your minus sign. That means it's 26.5 units from the center point. Now I'm using centimeters in this tutorial, but you can change what unit you want to use up here. So you can go up to options, units of measurement. You can choose inches per, tensions per inch, tensions per 4 inches, centimeters, normal units, or stitches and rows. So you can use stitches and rows to move exact rows. But for this tutorial, we want Designaknit to calculate our stitches and rows from the garment shape. So we're going to keep it in centimeters, okay? So we'll go back to our table window, which is piece table. And we're going to use this arrow to find point 16 again. Okay, so point 16 is minus 26.5 units from 0, and the unit we are using is centimeters. And the height of it is 0, so it's 0 units from the origin. So if I add 10 to this, so we go minus 10, you'll see the point move. So the point moved in, okay? So when that point moves in, it changes the coordinate on the graph. So a minus is always to the left in the x-axis, which is your horizontal axis, and a minus in the y is always down in the horizontal axis. So you add a higher number to go up, a lower number to go down, a lower number to go left, and a higher number to go right, okay? So we're going to undo that and go back to our garment shape, okay? So now we're back at our garment shape, and to make the asymmetrical, we're going to go back to the table. You won't have to go in and out like I am. I'm going out in and out to explain it, but you can leave your coordinates open. So we're going to move back down to the point 16. We've got minus 26.5, and our origin is 0. So, of course, so that's our height. So if I put in here minus 15, because I want the slope of my hem on one side to be 15 inches lower than the original hem. So I'm going to push apply, and I'm going to click OK, and we can see that Designaknit has moved the point down 15 centimeters. Okay, so that gives us our asymmetrical hem across here. Okay, so we can do that with any point. So we can move a point up, down, left, or right with the coordinate system. So you can get a garment schematic from a magazine, from a book, from the internet. You can import it in here by adding and removing points. But today we're just manipulating points. There'll be another tutorial down the line showing how to bring in a schematic and make it into a garment shape. Okay, so now that we've made our asymmetric line by using piece table and altering our coordinates to make 16, the origin of 16 minus 15 units down, we're going to use our curve tool, okay? So I'm going to click curve, and we're going to click on the curve, on the straight line, and we're going to add 25 in there. So 25 points means that this line will now be divided and added 25 more of these dots. Now, the more points you add, the smoother the curve. The less points you add, the rougher the curve. But if you add more points, you will get more shaping. Less points, less shaping. So you can make the garment faster to make by sacrificing the arc of the curve, or you can make the garment take a little bit more shaping and have a perfect arc. But we're going to just try 25 today. Alright. Now, there's several different curves we can use. We can use this very rounded curve, the bullnose curve, the squared off curve, and there's several other types of curves you can play with. But we're just going to use this one today because it allows us to move the curve in either direction. So if we want the curve to be asymmetrical, we can use this one. We can also use this one, but this one's got a square bottom and we want a nice curve. So once we do that, we're going to click OK. And you can see how now we've got this line. This line means we can move this anywhere and it will add points along that curve. So now we can zoom out a little bit and see our garment shape, and we can say, well, we want a nice curved hem. So if we just move this curve until we're happy, I like it about there. Click OK. You can see that when we zoom in with the mouse wheel, we've added all these points. So now, that there is a finished front block, okay? So that there is your finished asymmetrical hem. There's nothing more you have to do. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make the welt. Because we moved the garment to OPD, we have to add the welt because the welt doesn't transfer from OPD to here. So the welt is a rib, a hem, a band, whatever you want to call it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn these numbers off because we don't need them right now. And they're going to get in the way of what I want to show you. So now we're going to click on this measure edge tool, okay? So it's the little one here in the center. Now that tool will measure 2 points clockwise. So if I click on this point here and this point here, it's going to measure around the curve for me automatically. And that gives me the measurement I need to make my welt. So to make my welt, I'm going to block a new piece into Designaknit, and then I'm going to fit that piece to the size I want the welt, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to piece, block new piece. I'm going to name the pattern piece welt and click OK. And you can see that we've gotten this new piece and it's shown up all the other pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this piece and bring it over here underneath this piece, just for viewing purposes. And then I'm going to click this fit to width tool here, which means that I can fit the width of this square to any width I want. So I want to set it to 55.6 plus 5.5 centimeters of ease. Because it's a curve, you want to add a little bit of ease so that you can distribute the stitches more evenly across when you do the welt. So you can decrease in on the machine to make the welt fit a bit better. Because doing it on the curve, the welt needs a couple of extra stitches because it will be tight on the sides here if you don't. So I'm going to make it 50. I'm going to make it 56.1. But it doesn't have to be. You can make it 56 or you can make it 55.6. But if you make it too small, so if you make it the exact same size as this, you're likely to get pull in, especially if you're not doing rib and you're doing a hem. So I'm going to add that little bit extra. Okay, so that's fit this block here to the width we want our welt. So now we're going to fit the height of our welt. So I'm going to do a fold over hem on this garment for example purposes. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the welt, one welt, but we knit it twice. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this, fit to how many centimeters. We're going to make this high. We're going to make this a 2 centimeter welt. Okay, so that means our welt or rib or whatever you want to call it will be 2 centimeters high. And when we knit this, we can fit this exactly onto here with a little bit of division. Okay, and we're actually going to knit this garment in a later tutorial, so you'll see what I mean, but I think you get what I'm saying. You just do a couple of decreases on the ends when you get to knitting this bit after you do the welt, okay? So there's our welt, okay? Now we need to make a back garment piece to match this. So if we use this flat piece over top of this for the back of the garment, as you can see, there'd be just this strange looking flap and it wouldn't look good on anyone. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete this back piece by clicking delete on the keyboard and then click yes, okay? And then we're going to duplicate this piece so we can turn this one here into a back piece. So we're going to click on the piece so it's highlighted blue, and then we're going to go piece, duplicate piece, and I'm going to name the piece back. And click OK. Alright, so now what will happen is over here it'll generate the exact same piece over here. So I'm going to right click on it and drag it over next to this one. Okay. So if you look at this side is usually seamed to here because then it makes your armhole. But if you knit these two exactly the same, you're still going to have that flap problem. So we need to flip this so it becomes the back. So what we're going to do is we're going to go alter, flip, and it's going to flip it around. Okay? And that means when you sew those together, you're going to have a perfectly curved hem. If we move it over this way, you can see that there's how your hem will drape around the body. Okay? So this piece still has a neckline. So we're going to learn about removing points. Okay? So if I click on this little minus sign down here, it means that we can delete points. So if I delete this point here, you can see it removes it, and then the points that are left are connected. So we're going to go Control Z to undo that. So because we want to leave the armholes as they are, but we want to make this back into a straight back neck. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on these points here, and we're going to remove them, and it's going to move it back up to a straight neck. And that's all there is to it, to basic manipulations of a garment. So I'm going to zoom out so you can see all the pieces again. And we've made an altered garment with pattern drafting. So you know about how Designaknit works with a coordinate system, which will go in. The tutorials are going to progressively get harder and harder and harder. So first we're going to start with these simple manipulations, and then we'll work on to stitch patterns and the like. But I want to give, because a lot of people don't know where to start. So this is a basic way of manipulating the block with the Cartesian coordinates and the Designaknit table. So you can move any of these pieces in the table. So if you wanted to turn this into a dress, you can move these points down here, and then you can add more points in and such and such. Alright, thank you for watching my tutorial. I hope it helps some of you. I will get better. I'm still learning how to teach Designaknit. You know, I've taught other subjects, but I'm still learning how to teach, so I hope I can help you. If it has helped you out, software and yarn and everything costs a lot. So if you want to contribute to my Patreon or PayPal, there'll be a link in the description. I thank you very much for watching, and I hope it helps you. Happy knitting!